This is False Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm John Buhler, staff writer, fansided.com. I'm joined today by a man who, you know, actually played the right quarterback today in the second half of his game. The one that we feel really confident in being able to spell both of his names, even though one of them is missing an L. But his team didn't get an L, or maybe they did. I don't know. I didn't see North Carolina play. But Cody Williams, content director, fansided.com. How the hell are you?
First off, this is the first time the entire season that I've been proud to wear a North Carolina Tar Heels hat on the
Yeah.
program because we beat the ever-loving dog piss out of Virginia.
Bear,
Fraudulent.
bear,
Fire
bear,
Tony
bear.
Elliott. They're done. Sound the air horns. We're doing good, man. It's been a long day, but we're doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good on Bueller bye week here. Yeah. Didn't work today, but I definitely followed along to some college football, and you worked the whole day. And it was still not a lot of upsets or any at all, but it
Mhm.
was still very eventful. And more importantly, I think we learned a lot. We also didn't learn a lot because that's just how college football goes.
Dude, 100%. It was like it honestly, I was expecting a little more chaos than we like actually got in the
Yeah.
results, but like I think the results, even with like, teams not taking losses, still ended up being chaotic. I think that's probably the best way to say it.
There were a lot of close calls this week, and I feel like it creates a level of I don't know if it's like confusion or a cloud of like whatever it is, but like I feel like for the most part, it's like it created doubt. And there's a few teams that we don't have doubt in. I'm going to run with this to start. I'm going to run with
Let's
this
do
to
it.
start. There's three teams that I think we can pretty confidently say are looking like playoff teams. Texas A&M Aggies, who I referenced earlier, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and I'm adding a write-in because I voted today, the Indiana Hoosiers. I think
Hmm.
all three of these teams showed me enough of like this is what a playoff team looks like. I'm going to start with Notre Dame first. I think they had the
Okay.
most convincing victory. They go in there, they're playing Navy. Navy's had their best team since the internet existed, since we've been covering this team. And you and I are both like, yes, this game's in Baltimore. Yes, they're going to be fired up for this game, but like Notre Dame is Notre Dame and Navy is Navy. And it showed on the field. And Notre Dame just looks like a top eight team in college football. Whereas Navy looks pretty good, like they can win the American, but at the same time, like what you and I have said, like the group of five winner is coming out of the Mountain West, looking like it's going to be Boise State. Maybe we'll see Boise State UNLV to decide it here in Vegas in a couple of weeks. But like, yeah, Notre Dame just did exactly what we thought Notre Dame would do versus Navy and won decisively, very easily in the signature game of the first window.
No, 100%. And I think like, it was hard for me to get last year's Notre Dame Navy game out of my head because
Right.
Navy is better. Navy moved the ball in this game, which they had no hope of doing last year when they lost 42-3 in Ireland. Like they got their heads kicked in. Yes, they did so today, but I think we saw two teams that are just better than they were a year ago. Like
Right.
Notre Dame is absolutely better with Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard's not a perfect quarterback, but he is a good college quarterback. There's no doubt about that. This defense, even without Benjamin Morrison, is very good. That's why they forced 6 turnovers against the Navy offense that had not been turning the ball over hardly at all season. So like for Notre Dame to not only I mean, legitimately outside of Texas A&M, who we'll talk about in just a second, but like, which that win continues to look better and better as we go on. Like outside of Texas A&M, this was the toughest game Notre Dame has played by a pretty wide margin at this point, and like they went out and they hung a 50 burger on Navy. Like that tells you a lot about what this makeup of this Notre Dame team actually is, and like it makes it makes me feel at least a little vindicated for saying that the Northern Illinois game is nothing but an aberration. Like I think that's we're seeing more and more that that's kind of what that was.
Yeah, it's not like Navy's bad. Like Navy's gonna win like 9 or 10 games this year. They'll probably win their bowl game. They could win the American. They could beat Army. I
Hmm.
still probably would take Army. I think Army is a more evolved version of Navy, but with Notre Dame, it's like my big question for you with Notre Dame after watching this game is how high can they realistically think they'd be ranked like in the final playoff? Like I feel like right now, like they're gonna finish no worse than 10-2. If they go 10-2, they're still gonna make it.
Hmm.
Because again, this win and potentially the win they're gonna have over Army are gonna count because those are both gonna be like two 10-win teams as well. So it's like you're looking like at a team that's gonna be probably no worse than 9.
No, 100%. Like, I legitimately think they could climb as high as maybe even 5 or 6. Legitimately, depending, I mean, and, they'll need some help for that to happen. That's not going to be just Notre Dame based. Their strength of schedule remaining just isn't what it needs to be. And, thanks a lot, USC and Lincoln Riley, for that. Although they did beat Rutgers, I'll lay off them a little bit for this week. But, like, that's not a game that's going to boost their resume either. But like we have Ohio State, Penn State looming next week. If Ohio State were to lose that game, that makes them a two-loss team. Can you really put them above a one loss Notre Dame if Notre Dame were to go 11-1? I don't think so. You look at a Tennessee team that still has to play Georgia, who hasn't looked all that impressive, honestly. Like, you beat Alabama, great, but how good is Alabama? Sure, Alabama beat the piss out of Missouri, but Missouri might just suck,
We'll talk
especially with
about
Drew
the
Pine. They definitely
yeah.
suck. And so, like, it's just like I think that there's a legitimate world where we're looking at Notre Dame like hosting one of those first round games. Like I think that's probably like what they're aiming for at this point.
How were you just trying to recall, like, how were you feeling about Notre Dame entering the season? Did you have them like as a preseason playoff team? I had them
I
like,
believe so.
I believe we were both like, there was somewhere in that 7-9 range, probably on the
Yeah.
higher end of that. And it feels like they're gonna be that. And it's like Riley Leonard's getting better. They've kind of settled in. They feel like they've got the offense that they need to do all this stuff. I mean, if they're gonna play like what a 7-10 game and they're gonna play someone like Tennessee, you may win that, or you
Hmm.
may beat Penn State, but then you go and you play like the 2 seeds. So yeah, you got to go play like Georgia or Oregon. Yeah,
Yeah.
and good luck with that, S.
Now I just had like immediate like flash forwards to Notre Dame, Tennessee, which would just be a rock fight for the Aggies. Holy hell. That final score might be like 9-7 or something.
It'll be decided like mid like it's like quintuple overtime. It's like okay, the winner you have to go to the middle of your field and just smash each other in the head with a rock.
Yeah, legitimately. Like that's what it'll come down to. My God, please don't let that matchup happen. I will die. Especially if we're recording after the fact. Holy hell. Like I might just be a dead man on the podcast.
Watch that be like the Fiesta Bowl on like New Year's Eve.
No fiesta will be had if that were to take place. I assure you.
And celebrate good times. I threw Indiana here last minute. They're
Mhm.
8-0. This is their best start like since life began,
Yeah.
probably.
It's tied for their best start in program history. I don't know the date of when that was, but it's their best start in program history. So one more win and they're at their best start ever.
So they still got Ohio State in a couple weeks. Got some major concerns about the Buckeyes. And again, it goes back to the coaching staff. Also, you kind of wonder like Indiana would have won that game had they played it over Nebraska. It was just like
Hmm.
following along with that game a little bit. I'm like, Ohio State's. I'm kind of concerned if I don't know if Ohio State's going to make the playoff, but Indiana I think definitely is because like their pathway to 11 wins is just breezy, man.
Dude, 100%. And like, I'm becoming more and more inclined to believe that they're going to go 12-0 because, like, Ohio State, the thing that I keep coming back to with Ohio State, and the thing I think showed today, they're not well coached. Chip Kelly
No,
called it a truly horrendous game. Like, Ohio State fans overreact to a lot of things. They were not overreacting to what Chip Kelly did today. It was truly horrendous. That offense, but like, when you have that play calling and you have a quarterback who, in Will Howard, who has had a great career, has a ton of experience, has a ton of starts, has a lot of wins under his belt in his college football career, but is a limited player. Like this is not a guy who's going to be throwing passes at the NFL level, just point blank, period. Like he does not have that kind of arm, that kind of passing game in his repertoire. I do think that when you look at Kurt Signetti and you look at this Indiana team, they might be the best coach team in the entire country because they went out there against the Washington team today without Curtis Rourke and still put up 31 points. Now, the Washington defense is not one to write home about, don't get me wrong, but Taven Green or Taven, I'm totally blanking on his last name. I'm conflating Taylon Green and Taven, what's his name? Holy crap. This is gonna bother
Taven
me.
Taven. I'm looking this up. Indiana Taven. Indiana Taven. That's his name. That's a tavern. We're not that. We don't need that right now.
The Indiana Tavern.
Um, you know what?
Jackson. Taven Jackson. Okay, we
Thank,
got it. It is
thank,
Taven
thank,
Jackson.
thank God you found that because that was not happening right now for me at this hour.
So Taven Jackson comes in and like Taven Jackson lost the starting job to Braden Sorsby last year at Indiana. Like this is a guy who was benched for
Yes.
Sorsby last year. And so like this is a guy who's imperfect, and you still had him out there running a functional Indiana offense against a respectable Washington team. But more importantly, they're well coached enough that they won that game with defense. They held a Washington offense that has been humming pretty well for most of the season to 17 points. Like Indiana can beat you in every phase of the game because I think they're so damn well coached that I'm not convinced that Ohio State should be a heavy favorite in that game, especially after what I saw against Nebraska, a team that Indiana boat raced last week. Absolutely boat raced. And Nebraska had a possession at the end of the game to beat Ohio State today. Like it wasn't like that game was extremely close and extremely upset potential. And so when you look at that, like, yeah, Indiana could go 12 and 0, but even if they go 11 and 1, there's still a path to the playoff for them very easily, especially as we look at these other teams around them and we see a lot of flawed teams. Like you look at a Tennessee, you look at a Miami, you look at a Clemson. Like I think Clemson's going to win the ACC, sure, but I'm not going to say Clemson's not a flawed team. They absolutely are.
As I look at Indiana, like you're absolutely right. This is the most well-coached team in the country. I'm not ruling out the possibility that the Big Ten only gets three in this year. I think
It's
that's
possible.
because it's like I feel we'll talk about Oregon here in a second, but like I feel Oregon's like they're pretty much there. Indiana seems to be more there than Ohio State and Penn State, and certainly more than Illinois and Nebraska, who both lost. At this point, there are no other contenders in the Big Ten. They've all been
No.
crossed off at this point. I mean, is Wisconsin still in, I guess? But at that point, like
But I mean, they just lost to Penn State without Drew
yeah,
Aller. So, like, no.
yeah, no. So it's like you really only have four schools at this point. Whereas like you look at the ACC, like Duke just lost, but like Miami's still in it, Clemson's still in it, Pitt's still in it, SMU's still in it. Like
Mhm.
there's more there. The Big 12 has more there with K-State, with Iowa State, BYU. Like the Big Ten should at this point of the season, like they should have six teams still in it, and they have four at most.
Yeah,
And
100%.
so the math is just not in their favor. But I think I kind of go back to it with Indiana. It's like I will say that my favorite part about following along with it this week on Bueller bye week, Bueller bye week,
Right.
the pick sixes they had on Washington was the best one of the season. I like watched it like six times. Like, how did that like linebacker come up with the football? It was unbelievable. And I'm like, this is the kind of stuff that happens for a team that's like a so-called team of destiny. I'm not saying Indiana's gonna like win the uh the national championship or the Big Ten or whatever, but like things like that like present itself for
Hmm.
teams that are having like I don't say like generational years, but like 2022 TCU had moments like this. 21 Cincinnati had moments like this. And it's really cool to watch happen. Like the ball goes your way. It was so early in the game. It's like, how could you possibly lose a game like that when you have an interception of that magnitude at home? It's wild, dude.
No, it 100% is that. And like, I feel like Indiana has one of those plays, and only again, this goes back to them being well coached. It doesn't matter what phase of the game, whether it's special teams, whether it's defense, whether it's the offense. They have a game where you can argue whether or not momentum's real or not. I know there's a billion psychological studies. I don't care. The game just swings in their favor so quickly, and then it snowballs, and they have become because they're so well coached, they are masters of capitalizing on that. Whether or not that's momentum or not, I don't know, but they know how to capitalize on a moment when things are going their way. I do want to push back. North Carolina had an 84-yard pick six by a 290-pound defensive lineman today, which was the best pick
Yeah.
six of the day. So we'll give Indiana second place, a beautiful silver medal over there. But no, 100% on Indiana. And before we move on, though, we got to talk a little bit about Texas A&M. Obviously, the game we're coming live to you after. Um, Yeah, Connor Wegman might suck, dude,
Dude,
because
yeah.
the Aggies might have lost that game by like 20 if Connor Wegman played the second half. Instead, Mike Elko goes to Marcel Reed, and LSU's defense that I had been preaching was much improved no longer looked much improved when they weren't facing Connor Wegman.
No, I'm kind of wondering like where Connor Wegman's going to go play next year. What's a very Connor Wegman Power Four school? Where's he going to transfer
Oh
to?
no, it's not even Power Four, bro. He's going to Rice. I feel Rice right in my bones.
Uh, I'm thinking West Georgia, and they're just they're
JT
smoke
Daniels, baby.
they're smoking rice, thinking that they can get high off of this and to pretend to like how life just failed them. There was a point there where JT Daniels was picked to be like the number one overall pick after
hmm
like his really great 4 or 5 game stretch with Georgia. He looked awesome. Don't get me wrong. Like with JT Daniels, like end of COVID was looking really good, but obviously his body and just concussions just failed him. It happens.
Yeah.
Life happens. But
Uh, I don't think Connor Wegman's body's failing him. He's never been good, dude. Like it's always been look at the potential of this kid, and I'm like, okay, can he play quarterback? And I'm not real sure he can.
no, he doesn't have the broccoli of Drew Aller, so he's just lesser. He's like he's the Drew Aller you have at home.
Yeah, 100%. It's like moldy broccoli.
Dude, it's cauliflower. It's the worst version of broccoli. Okay, I think I'm actually kind of destroying you a little bit with this because like you were so I like most vegetables. I think cauliflower is like the one vegetable you can screw up and it's just awful.
Yeah, I mean, if you cook cauliflower right, I do like it, but like you can't just throw cauliflower in a dish and it like expect it to be good. Like just plain cauliflower is disgusting for sure.
Like cauliflower pizza, I'm like, I don't think I want to eat that. I feel like I feel
I'm
like
so good. I even if I was gluten intolerant, I still think I would just risk it. Like I'm not
no,
there.
I would just go paleo or some nonsense with that. But like it's apparent like Mike Elko is like with him at A&M, they're here to stay. Like this is the third best team in the SEC, maybe even two. There may be even points with like they might actually beat Texas. I think that
hmm
there's going to Marcel Reed. I don't know what it is. Like I've watched it a bunch, but like I can't quite explain it. Maybe you could do a better job of this, but like I think the offensive line just plays harder for him. I don't know why. It seems like they just jive with the dude better. I can't figure it out.
So I think it's twofold. I actually think that you're not wrong. I maybe not play harder for him or block harder for him, but like there is a different level of energy with the offense. And we saw it in the second half. Like the sidelines were firing, the sidelines were hyped up, and like, yeah, they were trailing in the first half. And so maybe that had something to do with it. But like it seemed relatively lifeless on that sideline when Connor Wegman was going out there and not really being able to do a whole lot outside of the first drive of the game. So like I do think that is part of it. The other thing that I noticed with Connor Wegman tonight that I think was probably tonight might have been one of the most egregious games I've seen from him. He is incredibly indecisive.
Yeah.
He will drop back and like he's not unathletic. Like he can create time for himself. So like I don't want to say that it's Marcel Reed's like dual threat ability that sets him apart because Connor Wegman has some of that in his game. But there were multiple instances tonight against LSU in the first half where he would escape pressure and then rather than make a decision, he would like check downfield and pump fake instead of either just taking off or throwing the ball and it would result in a sack and a negative game script or a negative drive script for Texas A&M. Marcel Reed, for better or worse, is super decisive. Like he 1-2 read and then he's gone. And like that is a huge advantage when you have an offense that has the playmakers that Texas A&M does on it. Like when you have someone with Marcel Reed speed, when you have someone like Le'Veon Moss coming out of the backfield, when you have these weapons who, yeah, sure, you lost an Evan Stewart, you lost these guys, but that's the thing about what Jimbo Fisher was doing is that you had a lot of depth because there was just 4 and 5 stars coming out of your ears in College Station. You didn't lose all of them. They're still there. And now you have a head coach and a staff with Colin Klein on there who is able to take advantage of that. And Marcel Reed just seems like a more decisive player, which is wild for a freshman as opposed to Connor Wegman, who's been in the program for several years now.
Yeah, so I'm tying this back to Indiana. Like again, coaching matters. Like Tom Allen recruited pretty well. Like he was getting like threes and four
Yeah.
stars from Florida, like Louisville level talent. Like we've seen like
Hmm.
when Louisville has good coaching, like they're a top 25 team. They can hang and be with anybody. I kind of feel like you're absolutely right with Marcel Reed just being way more decisive. His nickname is he's Schwarzkopf. He decides.
That's right. The
It doesn't
decider,
matter.
baby.
He figures it out. Whereas, like, I also feel like with this game for Wagman, like he went up against the better version of him, the 5-star steakhouse version, and
Hmm.
Garrett Nussmeier. And even in this defeat, I still feel really highly about Garrett Nussmeier as a pro prospect. It serves him to come back for next year because, like, again, like the draft pool is essentially like
Hmm.
him, Arch Manning, and Milroe if he comes back for like one more year. It's just like Nussmeier is doing a lot for I, LSU. Just looks really poorly coached. It's kind of
Yeah, they
like
really do. They really do.
it's disjointed. Like Blake Baker's defense hasn't taken. Brian Kelly is just getting older, looking like he's a relative of mine more and more by the day.
Man, I don't think like I guess I haven't listened to Brian Kelly talk a whole lot this year, but they were interviewing him pregame and I was like, man, you kind of devolved. Like you're not speaking real well right now. What's going on?
No, it's not going well. But I don't know why, but Mike Elko, it just kind of works. It just kind of feels like he's just above the BS. He's not out there collecting checks. I think he genuinely cares. He recruited a bunch of these people. That might be the next like star head coach in the SEC. Like kind of
Oh yeah.
like Kirby and Sark, and I'll probably put Lane on that level too.
Hmm.
But like Elko, just he's in his bag right now. I feel that like he's so sure of himself. Whereas like Josh Heupel's over there saying like, "Does this shirt make me look fat?" I'm like, dude, all shirts make you look fat.
Yeah, I mean, and let's be clear. Most shirts make Mike Elko look fat, but he doesn't care. He's confident and he wears it with confidence. And that's the biggest key right now. So like, I mean like I was admiring the Mike Elko's rack of ribs that he had in the smoker this evening, quite frankly. But he was ready to rock. And but like you're right, that decisiveness, that assuredness that he has in himself, like you don't make that move to Marcel Reed if you don't have that. If you don't have that like your team is good enough to win the game, you just need the right ingredients in there to do it. You bench a 5-star for a Marcel Reed and it works wonders. Like they absolutely just boat raced LSU in that second half.
Last question I'll ask you before we move on to our second topic because we've just been rolling, 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 and I'll actually tabulate who's bowling, and who's we got to pour one out here for Monday's episode. But like, yeah, you have to go with Marcel Reed the rest of the way, right? Don't you?
Oh, 100%. There, you can't like this isn't Quinn Ewers getting benched for Arch Manning last week because nothing was working. That because Arch Manning, the thing about that is Arch Manning came in and also like I mentioned on Thursday's show, like there's a chance some of that might have been injury related. Yeah, you gotta get that cortisone shot in. But regardless, like Arch Manning came in and didn't look any better against Georgia. Like that was a Georgia defense problem, not a Texas quarterback problem. Marcel Reed proved it was a Connor Wegman problem because Marcel Reed came in there and dominated. And when Connor Wegman looked as hapless as he did in that game, there's no coming back from that, especially for a team that is now very firmly in the college football playoff mix. Would honestly take a big surprise, a big shock to the system for them to not make the college football playoff. Like at this point, they can lose to Texas and still make the college football playoff. That's absolutely in the cards.
They're like, I mean, they're the driver's seat if anyone to get to Atlanta at this point.
Hmm.
They host Texas, and like at this point, it's gonna take like they're gonna have to lose A&M in another game and look really bad in the other game to not make it to
Hmm.
the playoff at this point. So it's almost like I would be utterly shocked if A&M doesn't make the playoff right now.
No, 100%. I'm with you. And we'll finally move on to our second topic of the evening because we went a little long on the first one, but that's okay. We're going to run again, and we're running with another team that looks like a lock to make the playoff, and that's the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah,
We talked about teams going undefeated previously and about how we really didn't see it happening. Oregon might do it, brother.
yeah.
Uh, they just dismantled Illinois. Illinois did not have a chance in that game. I actually am still ranked in the AP Top 25 projections, still ranking Illinois 25th. I think Illinois is still a good football team, but Oregon seems to have figured out what they are. And to me, one of the things that stood out early in the season, why I was trepidatious, is it seemed like they were trying to be last year's Oregon with Dylan Gabriel replacing Bo Nix. And as low as I am on Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel's not Bo Nix as a college quarterback. He's just not. He's a different player. Dylan Gabriel's a good player, but you can't expect the same things you were expecting from Bo Nix. Now it seems like Oregon is somewhat adopting the Dan Lanning mentality, that Kirby Smart mentality. Like this defense is playing at an extremely high level. We saw it again. We saw flashes of it against Ohio State, which Ohio State played a really good game in that when Oregon still only held them or still held them to 31 points and got the key stops they needed late in that game. And then you go out against an Illinois offense that knows exactly who they are, knows what they're going to try to do to try to keep Oregon at bay. And Illinois couldn't even do that. Illinois didn't have a chance. So like I think the way Oregon has established their identity right now, on top of the fact that they have a Charmin soft schedule over the last four games of the
Yeah.
season, it's probably going to be 12-0 going into Indianapolis.
And at that point, they're going to play presumably Penn State or Indiana, maybe Ohio State again. I said this, 2 weeks ago when you were wedding and things like that. If any team is going to go undefeated this year, 16-0, it's going to come out of the Big Ten. This is after Oregon beat Ohio State. And I'm like, okay, because the SEC, I'm like, it's too daunting. Texas isn't gonna run the table. And clearly at this point, every SEC team has lost at least one point. A&M hasn't lost a conference game yet, but they've lost to Notre Dame. Um, Oregon could do it. I'm still apprehensive of like how they match up with like Ohio State in a rematch or Georgia or Texas or A&M in a national semifinal championship, whatever that game may be. But like, if anyone is going to go 16-0 this year, it is the Oregon Ducks. They've gone out the last 2 weeks, really since the Ohio State game, winning by like 1 point because Will Howard's more slide than the Goo Goo Dolls. Also, I believe this up there. Me and the Arizona State podcast watched the Goo Goo Dolls with the music video for Iris. Creepiest video of all time. He's
Oh
just
yeah.
up there in an ivory tower looking through a bunch of spyglasses. No one knows what he's doing, playing acoustic guitar in a tunnel. Um,
Wait, that's not what you do in your spare time?
no, I don't want to end up on a list, but no, man, I'm trying to figure out where Pluto is, if that's still a planet. But
It's a planet in my book. That's all that matters.
that's the thing that we don't tell you. Antonio, that's Antonio's house. He just looks at people.
100%. The iris is actually based on Antonio.
That's his mom's name.
Just want you to know who I am, brother.
Bulldog.
Bulldog.
But yeah, ever since the Ohio State win, like they went out there, they basically made the the loss that Purdue suffered to Oregon is like it's it's not the final like nail in the coffin, but like it's the one like that Ryan Walters just can't recover from. And we talked about this beforehand, like with Illinois. It's like, God, this sucks that like Illinois has got to go to Eugene and play this game with their playoff chances on the line. It wasn't in liquid sunshine. I was thinking like, okay, this time of year they're probably going to play in rain or some nonsense. No, they just went to Oregon and got smoked. And
Mhm.
smoked Illini is not as appetizing as smoked duck.
It is
That's
not. No, it is not. But I mean, so when I say Oregon's going to go undefeated, I'm not talking 16-0. I'm talking just the regular season because I
okay.
mean that in my estimation, there aren't a lot of teams that I think are really in line to do that. Like Army is going to lose to Notre Dame. I think the Navy game pretty much all but confirmed that to me. Then you look at it in Indiana, like am I getting like a little frisky and wanting to pick them against Ohio State? Yes, but am I like fully confident in that? Absolutely not. Like Ohio State can out-talent them on any given day.
And do you trust the nail to beat the hammer in Ohio State, Penn State? No, because we watch Georgia lose to Alabama all the time. We know how that rivalry goes. It's the same. It's the same gosh darn thing. Almost swore there.
No, it's 100%. And so like that's pretty much all we have. And then you have Oregon sitting there and they finished the regular season at Michigan, hosting Maryland, at Wisconsin, bye week, and then hosting Washington. none of those teams can physically match up with Oregon. None of those teams are like, okay, let me rephrase that. Michigan defensively can physically match up with Oregon. Michigan's offense might score -3 points in that game. Like they're not going to be able to put a single point on the board in that game. So like there's just not a team that can like Illinois was the last great test for Oregon. Like when you looked at Oregon's schedule coming into the season, you had that Michigan game as one. Okay, maybe they can lose that. But then we didn't realize how bad Michigan was going to be this season. And so like the more it's shaping up, this Oregon team is really coming to its own. And I think that they're going into Indianapolis 12-0. I would love nothing more than to see 12-0 Oregon versus 12-0 Indiana in the Big Ten championship game. That would be electric.
I mean, I don't even want to know what Dick Vitale would think about that.
It's awesome, baby.
It's awesome, baby. The Ducks versus the Dapper Dandy, baby. Indiana Hoosier, baby. Yeah.
The ghost of Bob Knight on the sidelines, baby.
I wish he was here. He would be slinging those folding chairs across the parkade.
Yes, he would.
Also, I learned that like there's a John Mellencamp statue on like the Bloomington campus. I'm like, did you even? I don't think you went there, dude. It's okay.
I'm pretty sure John Mellencamp just showed up in the world as like a 28-year-old man.
Yes, it hurts so good being born at 28 years old.
One of my favorite internet posts of all time is there's a guy who's like drawing like a bar graph or like a line graph or whatever, and it's like my confidence that John Mellencamp has ever eaten a chili dog, and it's Jack and Diane is playing, and he's just like duh, 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 and he's like sucking on chili dogs, and the graph just drops off the entire map. It kills me.
Have you seen the guy that like made the did Jack and Diane, but like every word is sucking on chili dogs?
I have seen that. It's incredible stuff.
When we get off here, I've got something to say about Cougar, and it's not gonna hurt so good. So I'll keep the Hoosiers thinking, believing that he's their Jesus or whatever it is.
Of course, the patron saint of Hoosierdom.
The Hoosier Dome. That was about him. That's where they sacrifice people for
That's right.
whatever whatever the hell it is. But I guess I'll just finish up this thought with Oregon anyway. It's like Oregon's back to being Oregon, and this is the Oregon team that we both picked to get to the national championship game. Everything that I said about them earlier is just I just wanted to see this. So it's nice to see this be what it is now.
Yeah, turns out Dan Lanning actually is a good coach. So, happy that that's the case. And rib tat and all.
And that's perfect. The rib tat's great. Now I'm going to pass on somebody who I don't think is a good head coach, and that would be Mario Cristobal's Miami Hurricanes. I don't care that they beat Florida State. You and I could beat Florida State. You
Mhm.
going on 3 hours of sleep, and me doing Irish car bombs. Like, yeah, we would probably beat Florida State at this point.
Mhm.
I don't care. Like, also, is Florida State ref report went out for them? Are we on Monday?
Yeah, honestly, when you said that you're gonna have to do the calculus, I just wanted to be like, we'll go ahead and pour one out for Florida State because they're done now. 1-7. My God.
I'm like crowdsourcing talking about fellow college football fans at this the shindig, and they're like, you do realize Mario's not a good coach? And it's like, yeah, but the schedule is soft. I'm like, yeah, but they also play in the same conference as Clemson, as Pitt, who looked unbelievable versus Syracuse. Pitt looks
Yo, shouts to Kyle McCord. What the hell, brother?
shouts out to the 750 likes out there. That thing was wild.
My
And
God.
then SMU winning a very tough game at Duke and Wallace Wade in Durham. But yeah, I'm gonna pass on Miami uh, winning the ACC. I just
Mhm.
feel like those three other teams with Clemson, SMU, and Pitt have all shown more admirable traits than them. Clemson has shown me the ability to smush people.
Mhm.
Pitt has showed me the ability to just win with momentum and not care. And SMU has shown me the ability to be comfortable playing in really tight games. Now, I think the
Mhm.
SMU is probably the worst of those three, but the ponies have shown me like that's something that you can't create. Not every team gets that luxury to compete in that situation. Yes, they lost that close game at home several weeks ago to BYU, but they got that in overtime over Duke. That matters. Duke's bowling. Duke's not
Mhm.
bad. And Miami is gonna like whenever they play one of those teams is not going to be ready for the level that those are going to get to. They
Oh
may
yeah.
win, but like I'm just Miami is just they're the one team. They're the new Mizzou. Like I can't wait to drop them.
No, 100%. Like, there's no reason to drop them right now, but like, there is. You know what I'm saying? Like, they haven't given us a full-blown reason, but okay, here's just the last 4 weeks for Miami. You went and you nearly lost to Virginia Tech. Or sorry, last 4 games. They had a bye week in there. I apologize. Uh, you went and you nearly lost to Virginia Tech. You went to Cal and you nearly lost. You probably should have lost if the refs weren't in your back pocket. You nearly lost to Louisville. You let Louisville score 45 on you. Then you go to Florida State. And yes, you win 36 to 14, relatively convincing on the scoreboard. I had eyes on the entire game. It was not a convincing win. Cam Ward did not play his best game, and that was a game where Cam Ward should have put up 400 yards and 5 tutties. He did not. And like the Miami defense let Brock Glenn score 14 on him. I still don't trust this defense at all. You look at next week, Manny Diaz is coming to town. And I'll tell you one thing about what I just watched from this Duke team that nearly beat SMU. That's one of the better coached football teams in the entire country as well. Like that's a team that, and you throw in the Manny Diaz Miami factor of it all, they're getting Duke's best shot in that game. And I trust Manny Diaz a whole lot more than I do Mario Cristobal to be ready for that game. Miami is just like, I think where I'm coming down with Miami and what I've seen from these other teams, what you were describing, Miami doesn't know how to put their foot on the pedal, like
Yeah.
fully. They like putting on the cruise control and driving at 65 down the interstate right at the speed limit. And yeah, you're not going to get a ticket that way, but you're going to get passed. You're absolutely going to get passed. And like I've seen from Duke that they may not have the talent, or they definitely don't have the talent that Miami does, but they know how to put their foot on the pedal and do what they do well. SMU, maybe not tonight, but in most weeks, like Rhett Lashley, I trust him as a head coach to know where to like where the pressure points are and to push them. Clemson, same way on both sides of the ball. Cade Klubnik's playing really damn good football right now, which is a sentence I didn't thought I'd be saying after week one and what I saw against Georgia. But you look at in Pitt, I truly don't know what to make of Pitt, but they keep winning games and they keep doing so convincingly. So like Eli Holstein threw for like 140 yards against Syracuse. Didn't matter because they had like 3 pick sixes off of Kyle McCord. So like does not matter. They're finding ways to continually hit those pressure points and like you said, build off that momentum. Miami doesn't seem like it builds momentum at all. Miami doesn't seem like it has the ability to hit those pressure points. And I think you bring up a great point. I really think that does come down to Mario Cristobal and the way this team is coached and the way this culture is in Miami.
Yes. You bring up a point. You talk about people driving 65 the interstate getting past. That is probably one of my worst traits as a human being. Like I can't drive for very long periods. I hate it. I mean, we work at home. We don't drive a lot as we drive like at our off days and whenever we're off. Like our
Mhm.
commute is like 10 feet away from like the bedroom to like where the laptop is set up. So like the commutes we probably had to make in our early years, they're not there anymore. So like
Mhm.
we're not used to it. I go to the car like after 3 days, like, God, I suck at driving now. Driving out to my dad's today, I'm sitting there like an I-20 and like the right lane, like I'm getting past behind somebody with like a Komatsu in the back of the truck. I'm like, I guess I gotta like move at some point to get whatever I'm doing. I just kind of space out. It's not a good quality about me, but we're all about getting better. And I feel like a Mario Cristobal behind the wheel at 10 and 2, like that thing can drive itself.
That thing could drive itself. So I can't say I relate. I actually like a long drive. We drove up to Yellowstone and Grand Tetons. I did of the 13 and a half hour drive up there. I did math like 10 and a half hours of that. So, just straight through, just beasting it out. So I don't mind a long drive. Wouldn't say I'm the best driver, but that's okay.
No, I like driving too. I just kind of zone out. Like I don't drive angry or aggressive because like you're gonna get there at any point. Like that's just kind of my thought process. I don't want to pay a ticket. I don't make that much money. It's fine. But
As I told the NC State podcast the other day, I have a rage inside of me when I drive. It's pretty gnarly. Like I don't have the constitution to actually commit road rage, but like I understand how you get there for sure.
you lived in Atlanta for 3 years. It changed your life.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, nothing can prepare you for Atlanta traffic. It's ungodly.
There is, I think I know exactly what it is. You go off of Howellville and you go to the connector going southbound and you go right there by Atlantic Station and you just see it on the way to Georgia Tech. And you know that this next stretch between that and Grady Hospital, it's just like everything about this is a portal to hell.
Oh yeah. No, there you described it absolutely perfectly. And then God forbid you've got to go down 75 and you want to like go to like towards like Smyrna or the Brave Stadium or anything like that. Just kill me now.
Oh, and then if you want to go 75 north past there, like where my mom lives, like you got to go for like 4 lanes and like
Dude,
two exits.
it's oh God, the rage inside of me today is just coming out. But yeah, like Atlanta traffic is like it's the perfect storm. It's the most poorly designed roads on the planet. Like the interstate through Atlanta, like what are these people thinking when they design these roads? But then on top of that, everyone feels the exact same way that you do, except everyone just drives angrier than you do. So like they just drive super aggressively.
At the end of the day, we just got to blame deers and cows and us because like they created these pathways that the Native Americans walked through, and that's what created the roads here. That's Boston's the same way too. That's
Hmm.
just yeah, we gotta get to the grid system. But at that point, does it make you happier? No, it just makes you Indianapolis. But anyway, speaking of a team that's not going to go to Indianapolis because the Hurricanes aren't going to play there. The rage is coursing through inside of both of us today. There's a chance they might lose any of their like outside of Wake Forest. Miami could lose to Duke, they could lose to
Hmm.
Georgia Tech, and they could lose to Syracuse. There's again because there's things about all three of those teams that I don't think Miami is ready for. Georgia Tech fears absolutely nobody.
No. And I mean,
Maybe
I'm
Georgia, but
hoping,
that's it.
well, yeah, Georgia's a different beast. Georgia owns them, and that's not me just buttering you up. But like I really, really hope that Haynes King is back for that game. Otherwise, they don't Georgia Tech does not have a chance. I would put them in the Wake Forest category. But if Haynes King is playing, then yes, like Georgia Tech is going to muddy that game up. And I let me tell you what I don't trust Miami in is a muddied up game. Again, we go back to the Cal game. They should have lost that game. The refs bailed them out with a bogus call late in that game, allowed Cam Ward to go down and drive and get the game-winning score. You can't bank on that again, especially in Atlanta for the Georgia Tech game. Haynes King is going to make plays. Haynes King is going to test that Miami defense that I do not trust. Like, if Haynes King plays in that game, I'm circling that one as one that they might actually lose.
Oh, for sure. So before we get out of here with our last topic, I guess I gotta ask you a question. Try to be positive because Miami is 8-0,
Yeah.
and this is the team that I picked to win the ACC. This is a team that you pivoted very quickly to win the ACC. We've had them
I got a
inside.
quick look at NC State and realized what was happening.
You realize that Grayson McCall was made out of Lincoln Log or something.
He'd been through the meat grinder a couple times. Yeah.
uh, Pour one out for the Alabama waterfall. But yeah, anyway,
Amen.
but again, like I would say on Monday's show, we're both probably gonna have Miami like in the top 12. I feel like at this point, it's like you're not doing yourself enough like credit to like have them anywhere else. That they may not be 4 or 3, but they'll be like 10 or something.
They will be in the top 12. Like, I mean, they are 8-0. And like, do I think they lose one of the remaining four games? Yeah. Do I think they lose the ACC championship to whoever they play? Yeah. Does that still get you in the playoff? Probably.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the reality. Like, I do not trust Miami. I think if Miami does go to the playoff, I think they're one and done. Like, I do not think they win a game in the playoff. But
I,
we'd be lying to ourselves if we said that they weren't like getting close to being a lock to getting into the playoff.
Yeah, they were like 60 something, 70% this week. Now it's probably like 87.5. So like
Mhm.
you're getting there. I guess like the last question I had before we move on to the last topic is like, what needs to happen with Miami for the narrative to change to be like, I mean, there's a ceiling here, obviously, with the team, but like, how do we view Miami as being like 9, 10 and 0 and viewing them like really positive? Like, how do we flip it where like you were down on A&M this past week, and now you're like, I kind of not necessarily left with no choice, but like it was convincing. Like, what needs to happen for Miami to kind of be viewed in that regard?
I think that, and this is actually really counterintuitive to how I normally judge teams, but they need style points, man. Like I think style points are vastly overrated in a lot of conversations that we have with college football, but Miami needs style points more than most at this point. Like I think like when you okay, I think a good way to frame this would be put Miami next to Indiana.
Yes.
Where's the Nebraska game for Miami? Where they just go on the road to a good team, maybe not a great team, but a good team, and just beat the absolute dog
Yeah.
piss out of them. Miami does not have that game to this point. Florida might be the best example of that, and Florida was more discombobulated in week one than they are now. So, like, this is
Yeah.
a different iteration. Like, if they played Florida right now, I don't know what that game would look like. But I
S-
do think, like, you need stop points. You need to have that game where you show me that you, like I said, you can put your foot on the gas and keep it there.
So you're saying they got a 50 burger either Tech, Duke, or Syracuse, like 51 to 17. Like that's what we
Yeah,
kind of
not
need.
just not just 50 burger them because they 50 burger Louisville, but not give up 45 when you're playing the 50 burger. Like I need something where you just like beat someone with margin. Beat a good team with margin. That's what I want to see.
Beat a good team with margin and not margarine. Margarine. Jesus. All right. What do you want to punt with today, Cody?
Yeah, speaking of a team that did win with margin today, but that I'm still not ready to say that meant a whole lot. Yeah, Alabama beat Missouri by 34 points, 34 to nothing, and I don't feel any different about Alabama after that game. And there's another team that we'll unpack in just a second, Penn State, who I really don't know what to do with at this current juncture. But Alabama, do you feel any different after what they did to Missouri today?
It's kind of like survive in advance with them. Like they had to win this game. It
Mhm.
was closer for a while, and then it kind of got out of hand. It was kind of like once Alabama got 13 points to the board, I'm like, they're gonna win,
Yeah.
and they're gonna win comfortably. It's makes me feel like it's more likely they're gonna finish like 10 and 2. I mean, it all comes down to the LSU game. I don't think Auburn has any chance of beating
No.
them this year. I don't care if Auburn won today. Maybe they did, or Kentucky, whatever. We'll see.
They did. They did. Shouts to Auburn for getting a dub today. Hugh Freeze might keep his job.
Congratulations, bud.
I know. I'm real proud of him.
I'm so proud of him. It's not a driving school. It's 3-9. So it's like it's not this. It's this. You're still not going anywhere. That's okay. But it's you want to give Alabama credit for winning a game that they had to win, but it was like I mean we're talking like what? Like three like standard deviations of a chance of Mizzou losing. It just wasn't happening. Mizzou
Yeah, I
winning. Like,
mean,
it wasn't happening. And there wasn't the cards for them today.
like Brady Cook, again, shouts out to the dude because he's just an absolute warrior. Tried to play today, despite the fact that literally every talking point throughout the week was, yeah, there's no shot in hell Brady Cook's playing today. And then Saturday comes around and he's like, no, I'm suiting up. Turns out it was a bad idea because he got knocked out pretty early. You bring Drew Pine in. Drew Pine is awful. We watched what Arizona State was last year, and we watched what Arizona State this year. Sam Levitt's not a world changer, but he's a lot better than Drew Pine. And Drew Pine was the Missouri quarterback today. You talked about it being 13 nothing. Then Drew Pine started trying to press, and when Drew Pine started to press, Alabama got the ball in a lot of very advantageous field positions throughout that game.
He may have thrown the worst interception I've seen all year. Like
It was bad, dude. It was bad.
Jordan Rodgers is trying to break this down. He's like, there's like three guys over here. And he clearly doesn't see anybody. He basically said that like he's short, he's not good, and no one loves him at the same time. And it was like he threw the ball like to a safety that like there wasn't a Mizzou within 15 yards of him,
Mhm.
and Malachi Moore just took it like 25 yards the other way.
Yeah, like that's what Alabama was up against. And like to me, this game was a lot more about Missouri than it was about Alabama. Like I don't think like I think Alabama probably still wins this game whether Brady Cook's 100% healthy or not because I think Mizzou just is a lesser version than what we saw last year. They can't run the ball. The passing offense as a result of that has looked lesser than. The defense has looked worse since losing Blake Baker. Like Mizzou's just a good sorry, above average. I don't even want to give them good. Above average football team and nothing more than that.
No,
With Drew
it's
Pine, they might be bad, but
when Jordan Rodgers is like questioning like nepotism in your game, you know, he goes like, Drew Pine from the famous Pines of New Canaan, Connecticut. It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's a lot.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, that was Tom Hart and yeah, Tom Hart Kubelik, yeah. Jordan Rodgers called it a test. There we go. I got all confused with my broadcast
You're all good.
partners. So, I'm trying to figure like with Bama to really tie a bow on this, like it it just says like they're gonna be in the playoff mix into the final week. I would say the chances of them making it are fair. Like they're better than they're not at this point.
Mhm.
Mizzou is completely fraudulent, and I will say though, like it's nice to basically cross off a team that had no business potentially stealing a bid from
Mhm.
anybody else. I do wonder with Mizzou if Drink will leave because this is
It's
this kind of
possible.
I don't know if this was a program defining loss kind of in the same degree that like Lane Kiffin experienced with Ole Miss and Kentucky, but it was just like, yeah, you're at Mizzou, you're never gonna effing beat Alabama at Alabama. It's never
No.
happening ever.
No, and I don't want to say he realized that in real time, but he did look more exasperated than normal, I would say on the sidelines, like very just kind of like I don't know what the hell you want me to do was kind of his facial expression the entire game. And so like yeah, I do wonder if that happens with Alabama. I think what I'm having a really hard time getting past and why I'm not reading too much into this game because yes, again, part of it says a lot more about Mizzou that Mizzou is fraudulent whatever Drink's future is Drink's future. But with Alabama, I agree that they're still in the college football playoff mix until they aren't. But at the same time, I think that what I look at is Missouri's fraudulent. And to me, they're fraudulent in the fact that both sides of the ball are, they don't have a trump card. You know what I'm saying? And you look at Alabama's two losses on the year. Vanderbilt beat them in ostensibly a shootout. That was 40 to 35. Like that was just back and forth and Vanderbilt beat them. Just fair and square, no flukiness to it. They just went out there and beat them in a shootout. On the flip side of that, Tennessee's offense is just lifeless right now, but their defense came out and completely shut down Jalen Milroe in this offense. So the fact that Alabama has lost to two very different types of games tells me that they can lose to any team that has kind of a trump card that they can throw at them. Do I think that's LSU? I'm not entirely sure after what I saw tonight, but it's not out of the question. If Garrett Nussmeier has a great game, then yeah, they can lose. Alabama can definitely lose another shootout. But then looking forward into the playoff, I would venture to say that at least nine of the 12 teams that are going to be in the playoff have that trump card that I
Yeah,
think could beat Alabama.
yeah, because you're like, okay, Georgia rematch could do it. Texas could do it. A&M
Hmm.
could do it. Oregon could do it. Maybe Clemson could do it
Yeah,
with their yeah. Then it's like you kind of get down to the point where like I don't think Alabama's going to stop Ashton Genty. It just I don't see that happening.
no,
You kind of get down to the point where like okay, you're wondering like okay, is Ohio State or Penn State going to do it? Or and then you're kind of wondering like can Iowa State or BYU play in a game against them? Maybe, but
maybe.
it's maybe. Um, I will say that with Mizzou, like they always have a pass rush, and even then it kind of got with Jalen Miller. My big thing with my last thought with Alabama before we finished with Penn State is this: like Jalen Milroe is not playing fast because I think he is still trying to understand the nuances and
Hmm.
idiosyncrasies of Nick Sheridan's offense, and it's just very clear. There's not enough of a commitment to the run with them. Like there's no the play calling I feel with because Nick Sheridan called a fantastic game versus Georgia. Obviously, the halfback pass touchdown to Jam Miller was just like
Hmm.
unbelievable. One of the best throws I've ever seen. But like they're not using the run to open up the pass. They're not using the pass to open up the run. It's just very incohesive. And I feel that Jalen Milroe is just really frustrated with that right now.
No, I think that's a really astute point by you. I think that frankly, I don't think Alabama's running backs are that good. Like Jam Miller and Justice Haynes have not impressed me at all this year when they have been given opportunities. Like they've been stonewalled pretty frequently when they have tried to lean on the run. So it might be by necessity that that's the case, but from Jalen Milroe's perspective, it's not doing him any favors as he's trying to pick up this like new offense and more responsibility, frankly. Like, I think that's the other thing is like Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan's offense. There's a lot of responsibility placed on the quarterback. You look at what Michael Penix Jr. did last year under Kalen DeBoer. That was Michael Penix Jr.'s offense. Everything ran through what he did. And that's not something that you could really say about Jalen Milroe last year, particularly with his arm. And there's so much being relied upon with his arm right now that not having the crutch of a reliable run game right now is definitely showing.
And to be fair, like I think if Milroe, I believe he has one more year of eligibility. I
Yeah.
think he This will be better next year for both of them. I'm bullish on that next year. It's growing pains for both. There's been moments for both where it's like, this is great. It's just inconsistent. And maybe that's a good way to kind of tie the bow in that episode with Penn State here. Obviously, with Drew Allen going out there versus Wisconsin, a team you're more talented than, you're going to show up and probably beat them. But like they kept it a little more close than expected and eventually kind of pulled away. Penn State's still undefeated. It doesn't feel like Miami. I don't know if I'm not going to use the word fraudulent. It feels a little bit more battle tested, maybe a little bit more authentic, more substantial, more savory. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. But at the same time, I'm like, you're still Penn State. And every time you play Ohio State, I'm going to pick Ohio State over you because James Franklin's your head coach.
Uh, I will say that there's a tweet that happened after the Ohio State Oregon game that I can't get out of my head that said that Ryan Day is the Michael Jordan of James Franklin's.
Oh, well, yeah.
So can't get that out of my head and gonna be thinking about that next week when Ohio State and Penn State play. But you're absolutely right. Like Penn State at this point, I think they are a much better team than they have been the past 2 or 3 years. I think that obviously for next week's matchup, Drew Aller's health, he left the game at halftime tonight. Like, if Drew Aller's not healthy, I'm probably going to pick Ohio State winning by a lot in that game. At the same time, the fact that Drew Aller went out in a game where Penn State was still trailing at halftime, they were down 10-7 at the half when he went out. The fact that the defense came out and notched a pick six, was able to really carry this team and shut down Wisconsin better than they were in the first half. And the fact that Andy Kotelnicki, our boy, came out there and called an offense with a quarterback who is far less talented than Drew Aller and was still able to win 28-13 over Wisconsin in Camp Randall. I think this Penn State team is a lot better than what we've seen. And I think they're better coached. I think that they're better, like they have more talent, more depth. I think this is the best built team to beat Ohio State that I think we've seen. At the same time, they are still Penn State. And we're punting on them because I think we have to punt on Penn State and still until we see them prove that definitively in those big moments, this is a new Penn State. And we have not seen that yet.
Yes. Like perfect example. Like you talk about like the you're not going to win with scheme in
Mhm.
college over the long haul. The short term you can. If Penn State out schemes Ohio State, which they could certainly do, like their A game's got to beat Ohio State. But Ohio State can still win with like their C game because they have Ohio State talent. And not to say that Penn State's talent's all that far off. I just kind of feel that like Penn State for the entire James Franklin era, pretty much outside of when Trace McSorley was just doing the
God
cousin
knows
of
what.
Troy Nunes, just making magic happen out there. Like
Yes.
they Penn State just doesn't play explosive offensive football.
Yeah.
Just bring Joe Moorhead back. He's going to need a job after this year.
Hey, dude, I think Akron won today. I think they beat EMU. So, what a world we're living in. The MAC is just on and off its effing rocker right now.
How's Doug feeling?
Doug's feeling it, baby.
Do the commercial where like he's a like Macy's Day Parade blip and gets hit by like a light post. The therapist goes like, "Is he in all of your dreams?" She's like, "Oh yeah."
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I guess the last thing about maybe you got anything else at Penn State.
No.
Tom Allen's a head coach. Like this is that 1 year thing. Like I don't know where he goes. Like it's very apparent. Like if he goes to a better job than Indiana, like he'll win. Like
Mhm.
I don't know what's like a Big 12 job that would be good for him. Like he could do like because he's so overqualified for this. It's like Manny Diaz. It's so obvious.
I still don't know if it's going to open up because they did win today, but like a place like TCU, I feel like he could really
Yeah.
succeed. But like, shouts to TCU for beating Texas Tech. Speaking of Texas Tech, I think Tom Allen could go to Texas Tech and have a lot of success.
I have the Big 12 answer. It's UCF. Gus has lost 5 in a row.
Oh yeah, yeah. Shouts to Gus for just laying a big fat egg against BYU today.
I feel like we've come full circle on Gus. It's like we realize now what Auburn moved off of him. It's like you have no scheme. You just do hurry up and run, boys. That's all you do. You basically just slap asses in the shower. Let's go, boys. Come on, boys. Let's go. Let's go. It's like, what's your offense? Just go. Just go. Yeah, I like to move it, move it. There's no tact here.
Yeah.
He's the guy like you're asking him to be at your wedding party. And he shows up with a sunburn and a hickey on his face. And it's like, who's that from? Your sister, bro.
Don't worry about it, bro.
Yeah, this was 3 yards to cloud of punt here at False Start. Yes. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter, the X at Buhler118. You can follow Cody Williams at the Sizzle20. You can follow the show at CFB False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review at Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Hopefully I was coherent enough today. I feel like today was kicking my ass like Ed Henry. That's how today was going.
Yeah, my ass has been kicked, dude. I wasn't even in the state championship against Ed Henry because he'd already kicked my ass so hard. But I appreciate us both showing up.
Showed up, man. If you don't wear your dad's best suit, don't show up at my bus or something. I don't even know. God, that's the best. It's the best sports movie of all time. I don't think there's anything close.
No, not even close, dude. It's so good.
But it's like probably two is Happy Gilmore, to be totally honest with
Oh
you.
yeah. Dude, I quote Happy Gilmore like I think I've quoted Happy Gilmore so much that like I'll quote it and like not even like coherently recognize that I'm doing it. Like it's I might go watch Happy Gilmore right now, frankly.
Don't fall out of a second story window like Chubbs. And this is false start.